All right, saints, we're going on in this book of Revelation. We've entered the narrow door, the narrow gate. We've stayed on the narrow way, which is Christ himself. And as you're going to see, as we've seen so far, this book is a wonderful revelation of him. It's a glorious revelation. And we're clear up to the middle of the 6th chapter. And we haven't seen anything but this revelation of him. And in the first 4 seals, we've seen that those are things that have went on throughout the church age. There's nothing new there. We're not in the first seal, the 6th seal. We're that all those on the broad road to destruction are trying to tell you, oh, we're in the 3rd seal. The seals cover the entire church age. All the seals cover the entire church age. It's that time that men can and will be saved. And we've seen the first 4 seals. And like I said, each of them, one of the 4 living creatures calls John to come and shows it to him. But in the 5th and 6th seal, there's no living creature there because things are going to change now, saints. We're going to move on with this wonderful revelation of the Lord and see why the 4 living creatures are there in the first 4 seals. Because like I said, these seals cover the time that men can and will be saved throughout the entire church age. They have nothing to do with those on the broad road to destruction. And when we come to the 5th seal, and when the Lamb broke the 5th seal, I saw underneath the altar the souls of those who had been slain because of the word of God and because of the testimony which they had maintained. So when this 5th seal is broken, John sees those that have been slain for their testimony and because of the word of God. They had laid down their life. They had given up their life. And they cried out with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, wilt thou refrain from judging and avenging our blood on those who dwell on the earth?" So John sees these at the altar of God here that have been slain. And they're asking, how long? They're asking God, how long until you will avenge our blood? And in verse 11, and there was given to each of them a white robe. So they're each given this white robe representing righteousness. And they were told that they should rest a little while longer until the number, listen saints, until the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who were to be killed even as they had been should be completed. So John sees in the 5th seal those that have laid down their life. They've lost their life. They've been slain for their testimony, for the word of the Lord. And they want to know when their blood's going to be avenged. And they're told they have to wait until all those that are going to be slain are slain. They have to wait for them. And we're going to see later in this book, saints, that's why you want to follow these things. Follow this revelation. Subscribe and stick with us and see these things. Because later we're going to see who these are, where this happens. They're waiting for the rest. Those that throughout the church age, remember the seals are covered in the church age, this represents those that have been slain. And they're waiting for the ones that are to be slain as they were. So that's going to include those that have went throughout this 2,000-year church age right down to the last day of the tribulation. They have to wait for them. And we're going to see later as we continue through this book, not today, it's quite a bit later in the book of Revelation, who they are, where they are, when this happens. So you want to be here for that. But that's what the 5th seal covers. Throughout the church age, those that are slain for the word of God. And they're told they have to wait until the rest that are going to be slain are slain. And now, saints, we go into another revelation here, another wonderful thing we see here. Because now we're coming to the 6th seal. And I want to tell you right up front here, we want to see. Remember I told you these seals cover the entire church age. From the time of Christ's death and resurrection to the very end of the tribulation. The 6th seal covers those that will be saved during the tribulation period. The sixth seal covers the tribulation period, because as you're going to see very shortly, don't believe those that tell you that the whole church is going to get raptured before the tribulation, sit on a cloud and play a harp. It's not true. Those ready, waiting, watching will be caught up before the tribulation. They won't be caught by that thief in the night. But those that love the world, the things of the world that are in the flesh, they'll go into the tribulation, and you're going to see that so plainly. But God's going to pour His glory and His power out upon them. So the sixth seal is covering those that go into the tribulation and those that get saved in the tribulation. The seals cover the entire church age. The sixth seal is covering the tribulation, because hundreds of millions of people will be saved in the tribulation. And that's what we're going to see here. And that's why there's no living creature here. Those that are already slain, that doesn't stand between God and man, heaven and earth. They're already gone. They're already here with the Lord. The sixth seal, you say, well, why ain't there a living creature with the sixth seal? Because man was ruling by God's authority, as we saw in the first seal. That white horse represented God's authority. It was man that sat upon that. And so now in the sixth seal, why is there no living creature? Because man is not longer going to rule by God's authority. Satan's coming. Satan's going to rule and reign upon the earth. So that's why there's no living creature here mentioned. And as I said, the sixth seal covers the entire tribulation period, only in the sense that it covers the time that men can and will be saved. And as we read on here, in verse 12, and I looked when He broke the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake. Now what's going to happen, saints? We're going to see this later too. Babylon is going to fall in 1 hour of 1 day by an asteroid hitting off of its coast. That's hour 1, day 1 of the tribulation. That's why you can number the days of the tribulation, right down to the hour. Because when that asteroid hits, as it says in chapter 18, that's hour 1, day 1 of the tribulation period. Babylon will fall. It'll upset the world's governments. They will start to fall. But the kingdom of the beast will quickly rise up. And he will say he's bringing peace to the earth. He's going to bring structure back. He's going to bring commerce back. Buying and selling and trading. So the reason you first see this, and I looked in when He broke the sixth seal, there was a great earthquake. You see any good documentary on asteroids hitting the earth, the first thing you see as it hits is these giant, big earthquakes. The earth shakes. And that's why that's mentioned first. And there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth made of hair, and the whole moon became like blood. Because as that cloud, as that debris kicks up into the air, it's going to block out the sun. It's going to block out the moon. And in verse 13, and the stars of the sky fell to earth, as a fig tree casts its unripe figs when shaken by a great wind. Now some of those on the broad road to destruction, these silly people just telling you all this insane stuff, they tell you the stars from the sky are going to fall to earth. If one star even come near the earth would be gone. It'd be burned up. No, what's happening here is that asteroid hits and the stars of the sky fell to earth as a fig tree casts its unripe figs when shaken by a great wind. I saw this in a vision one day. I didn't see the asteroid hit, but I saw the debris, I saw the chaos, and then this big cloud went up, and there was these burning debris, these pillars that were burning, chunks of debris and rock that were burning, and columns of smoke. There was pillars of fire and column of smoke pouring down for a great distance from the asteroid hit as it kicked up the debris. And that's what it's talking about. And the stars of the sky, they look like shooting stars. They look like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these raining down upon the earth. And it looked like it's a fig tree casts its unripe figs when shaken by a great wind. And in verse 14, and the sky was split apart like a scroll when it is rolled up. It's going to be like a nuclear bomb going off. You see the same thing in any good documentary on an asteroid hitting. It'll be just like a nuclear bomb going off. It'll hit, it'll shake the earth, that cloud and debris will come up, and it'll roll like a nuclear bomb, like a nuclear explosion. And the sky was split apart like a scroll when it's rolled up, just like a nuclear bomb at the top of it rolling. And here's where so many people make so many mistakes on this and tell you other silly stories. And every mountain and island were moved out of their places. They try to tell you that that happens twice, because it's mentioned again in Revelation 16. Revelation 16 is only talking about this again. And what does this mean? They try to tell you that every mountain and island on earth is gone. That's crazy. Mankind would be gone. How would the kingdom of the beast and the kingdom of the antichrist come and rule and reign to where you can't buy, sell, or trade without their mark if every mountain and island are gone? It's not what it's talking about. It's talking about, again, remember the 6 seals covering the tribulation period. This is talking about how the tribulation starts. That asteroid hits. And where that asteroid hits, it's going to hit in an ocean. We're going to see that shortly in some future messages. Where that asteroid hits in an ocean, every island around there, and there's lots of islands around there, are going to be just wiped out, gone from the effects of the asteroid. And every mountain near there is going to be pushed down, destroyed, just pushed out of the way as the effects of that asteroid hits. It's not every mountain and island on earth. It's where the asteroid hits. And the further out you get from that, the less damage there will be. But where it hits, every mountain and island will be gone. That's all it's saying. And in verse 15, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the commanders, and the rich, and the strong, and every slave and free man hid themselves. If every mountain and island around the entire world, as they try to tell you, those on the broad road to destruction is gone, how would every king of the earth, and great men, and commanders, and rich men, and strong, and slaves, and free men be hiding themselves? How would they be hiding themselves? They'd all be dead. There'd be nowhere to hide yourself. All the mountains, the islands, everything's gone. No, it's where that asteroid hits. And the effects of it causes men around the world to go into a panic and want to hide. Hid themselves in the caves and among the rocks. And especially if you're anywhere near where that asteroid hits, the only way you can protect yourself is that debris goes up and those rocks and that garbage from where it hits, and it's spread around with these pillars of fire and columns of smoke raining down. You're going to have to be in a garage, in a cave, underground, because it's going to rain down for a great distance. Now, the further you get from that, the less that will happen. And in verse 16, listen what it says here. And they said to the mountains and to the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the presence of him who sits on the throne. Now again, here's another proof that in chapter 4, that I told you that one sitting on the throne is the Father. The Lamb rises up. He takes that scroll from the Father. Lots of people want to tell you that that is Christ. It can't be Christ. Because in chapter 5, the Lamb rose up and took the scroll from his hand. And here again we see, fall on us and hide us from the presence of him who sits on the throne, the Father, and from the wrath of the Lamb. They're separated. They're separated. They're not the same person. That's not the Lamb sitting on that throne in chapter 4. Here again, it separates them as the Father and the Son. And in verse 17, for the great day of their wrath has come, and who is able to stand? As it says, it's come. This is at the beginning of the tribulation. It's not the tribulation yet. Don't worry. The tribulation hasn't started yet. We're still in the seals. That time of Christ's sacrifice being applied to the people, those foreknown, chosen by the Father throughout the church age for over 2,000 years. This isn't the start of the tribulation. This is only telling you that even in and throughout the tribulation, men can and will be saved. That's all this is saying. So the seals cover the entire church age, from the death of the Lord and his resurrection to the very end of the tribulation, including the tribulation period. That's what the sixth seal is. It covers the tribulation period. And we're going to go on after this. We're already through chapter 6, saints, and we're not even in the tribulation yet. We just went through this. The seals is this other glorious revelation of him, and that price having been paid throughout the church age for their sins, and him getting those people that the Father foreknown for over 2,000 years. He has paid that price. It's a revelation of the breaking of those seals for over 2,000 years, including the tribulation period. Because as we're going to go on, saints, don't believe those that tell you that everybody that ever said yes to Jesus is going to get raptured before the tribulation and sit on a cloud. Those ready, watching, prepared, their lamps are lit. They don't love the world or the things of the world. They'll be caught up in the pre-tribulation rapture. But the rest, Laodicea, those that he had not one good thing to say about, those who love the world and walk in the flesh, they'll go into the tribulation. But they'll have the latter-day rain poured upon them, the glory and the power of God, and hundreds of millions of people will get saved. And they will be caught up at the middle of the tribulation. So the seal, saints, cover the church age, the time that men can and will be saved. And we'll go on into chapter 7 and continue this glorious revelation of the Son of God, because we entered the small door. We entered the narrow gate. We're on the narrow way, which is Christ himself. Those on the broad road to destruction have brought you nothing but hell on earth. We have brought you a revelation of the Son of the living God.